Hello viewers, you are welcome to strf time. Oh, strp time. Okay, so in the previous tutorial we dealt with strf time, and we have to deal with strp time in this tutorial, which is string put time. Those of you who watched the tutorial at the beginning, where there was a whole lot of argument on either str pointer time, str pass time, but it's not any big deal. Okay, all we're trying to do with strp time is having a string data, okay, and we want to convert it or put it in a time format. So that is why we call it str put time. Okay, it doesn't fit in English, but it fits in programming. All right, so let's begin to do what we have to do, and how can we implement that code. So I'm wiping out all this which we did earlier. Okay, so what we have to do is to receive an input from a user. Okay, we are receiving input from a user, so let's begin. So user value or user date. Okay, or we can even, in as much as we're using user date, we can just simply say okay, let's say user date, but let's not receive input from the user first. Okay, let's just jump into what we have to do, then I assign. So all we need is a string date, okay, a value in a string, so we are able to format it within the time. Okay, so that's what we want to do. Just a minute. Okay, just a minute. All right, so there is one more thing I want you to check. Those of you who did not have access to the previous tutorial, or those of you who had access, I did not do this, just check this out. So if I say print the type, okay, of this, it becomes a string. Okay, this is just what I want to display. It becomes a string because we've converted it from time or from normal time to string, so the type now becomes a string. Okay, so what we're about to do after the conversion is to become date and time. All right, so let's jump into what we're doing. Okay, so I have a user value which is equals date, so maybe 23rd of August. Okay, we have 2020. So this is the format we have, and in the format we want to change it to a date and time because we cannot do anything with it. This is basically blur. We can't do anything with this format we are having, so we want to do something with this stuff. We want to do like time delta, because I can't subtract one date from another date. This is string, so there are so many date time methods which I cannot access. I can't say dot date time, it's not possible. So if I have a date, maybe we ask the user to enter their birthday and they enter 23rd of August 2020, then meaning they are not born yet. Alright, so after they entering this date, we want to go beyond scope to be able to subtract the date they enter from today's day. So we tell the number of days left to their birthday, but this is in a string format, so we first have to convert it to a date and time format before we can do the subtraction. Okay, so let's begin on what we have to do. So we want to print it out to the user, so we just jump into it and say print and date time. Now those of you who watched the previous tutorials as well, I made mention of the first one using the current value, but with this, if you try to use the user value, you don't have access to strp time and strf time. Okay, so when transferring a datetime object to string, you can go directly and say current date, okay, and bring the dot and say strp time or f time. But if you want to transfer string to date time, you have to specify the date time first. Okay, so just check my previous tutorial if you are confused, but if not, let's continue, no problem with that. So if you want to do this, the first thing you have to do is reference the datetime class. After referencing the datetime class, you have access to strf time or strp time. After having your strp time, the next thing left is which string. Okay, which string do you want to format? Which string do you want to take back to the date time? Then I say user value, then I bring my comma. Then after, I have to identify the format with which the string is in. So just get a concept. Okay, now after doing all this, I specify the string value which I want to convert to the datetime object. Then after specifying, I bring the format which it is in. So those of you who would, I'm just saying those of you, but go back and watch the previous tutorial. It's very interesting up there. Okay, so this format is actually D. If you remember, this is D because D shows the first of the date, either 23rd, 1st or 2nd, and this is actually capital B because capital B shows everything. Smaller b will show AUG. Okay, the short form, and this 2020, so 2020 is also capital Y. Smaller y only shows 20. Okay, so I bring my string and bring this. I'm writing the format, so Python has to compare this format to what we have here, and if it is the same, it gives us what we need. So percentage, then after the percentage I say D, and I bring the forward slash. Okay, after the percentage I bring b forward slash after percentage, I bring y. Okay, so if I run the code, it's now in the datetime format. So if I bring the type, let's see, type of this, oh, so if I print type of this, it tells me it is a datetime class. Okay, so this what is actually revealing to us, but so it has been able to be converted to a datetime class, so I can do several things with it. So if I run the code, we have this. So this is what we actually have. All right, so what if I change something here? What if I take away the slashes, the forward slashes, and run the code? It gives me an error because they say that the date or the time data, which is 23rd of August 2020, does not match the format dby with the percentage in front of them. So it needs the format well, so I have to use each and every format in an appropriate way. So if I should run the code, it gives it to me. If I change this and make it small b, which is AUG, but this is a full August, and I run the code, it gives me an error. So it still does not match the format. Okay, so be careful which one you're using, unless I make here AUG. If I run the code, it works. Okay, because that's what the B actually means. Okay, so be careful what you're using, and be careful as well, especially if you're receiving input from the user. But this is console, so you have no problem. But if you're dealing with graphical user interface, you wouldn't have any problem, because we are not going to allow the user to enter the time. We just allow them to be clicking. So clicking makes it simple. Okay, and receive how the GUI formats its time, and we are good to go, because users can mix this. Someone can enter his name here, 23rd of my name 2020, so we have no problem. Okay, let me just introduce something little. So we want to receive input from the user, so enter your date of birth. Okay, enter your date of birth. And so if they should enter, now I wrote the code, so I know the format I'm expecting. So 23rd December, this is not my birthday, so 2019, so there's it. Okay, but what if the user does not know the format? So I have to kind of put them within a bracket and say this format, enter your date. That's why some softwares you see date, month, year. Okay, now don't tell the user percentage D, percentage B, percentage Y. The user has no idea percentage Y, but you and I know that anytime the user sees M, he knows month. Anytime the user sees Y, he knows year. Anytime he sees D, means date. So if the user should see this, he go, oh, okay, then 31st of forward slash and month, December, and then 2019. Okay, so the user sees this, he enters the property, but there are supposed to be error handling within our code. So I said earlier, if you are dealing with graphical user interface, it's simple to be handled. This is just console. Okay, so I'm going to teach you in a GUI how to handle all this, making it appropriate, reducing your errors and every other stuff. So this is what you have to know about receiving the datetime class from a string. So the next tutorial, I'll teach you how to manipulate them, subtracting one date from another and being productive with our date and time. Thank you for viewing. Subscribe to the channel if you have not. Hit the bell again to receive more updates which I release. Like the video if they're informative for you, share with new friends, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.